Last vid of the night. The battery will probably die during it. Just kidding. So anyway, questions and answers. Do I think Trump stole votes from Hillary in North Carolina? I'm going to answer this in the video too. It'll take a week to vet any claims on such a thing, and I treat all voter tampering claims as being most likely faked, because it's really hard to screw up the vote. Not because it's hard to do so, but because most people just don't want to put in the effort. I know that sounds strange, but it really doesn't happen in the United States as often as most people think about. And any claim of it is almost always driven by somebody who won't show proof of it. In cases that you find that actual voter fraud has happened, there's actual evidence. I mean, there's something. If there isn't anything, then someone would get away with it, and it's kind of a waste of energy to do so. However, electronic voter fraud has actually been attempted, and in some cases maybe have affected things. There's some evidence for that. But mechanical tampering is really a pain in the rump. And, of course, when you have an election like this one where a lot of people voted early or got ballots, then the claim turns to, oh, well, somebody printed up a bunch of ballots pre-filled. Well, or whatever. And the thing is, nobody makes these assertions midterm. It's the main power brokers gain their jobs every 2 years, not 4 years. And most of you don't know that you're just electing the same person over and over again with almost no commentary from the population. If everyone actually voted midterm all at once, it would scare the hell out of the establishment. And that's for Trey, if you're watching. And another one. Obviously I can't vet this information I've given you, but since your comment section is a free and open democracy, no it isn't, you must let it stand. Guaranteed useless troll comment redaction, and of course I said, say 5 hail yo mamas and call it good, because, you know, your mom, but, you know, Mr. Rourke. So that was you know, stop censoring me, and I was going to do a joke about, you know, Gillette censor, you know, blades, but I don't think anybody's going to get that joke, so we'll just leave it here in the video, and we'll just try to forget I tried to do that. I'm going to do a response on opinions of things that people like doing videos about on YouTube. Don't. No, anyway, here we go. I also have to do a video tomorrow on how to upload a video on YouTube, which is kind of meta, but I have to do that for a special person. So here we go with the comments for the day. This is all in one shot from one person. Hey, Chris. Are you doing the no-shave November thing? For medical reasons, this sounds really stupid. I don't shave unless I have to, and I do need to shave today. Actually, I was going to do that, but it ran out of time because I was doing something else existing. It's medically compromising for me to shave because my skin so easily gets infected with stuff. It's stupid. I can fight off all sorts of really serious infections, but stupid little things will actually start really hurting me. And no, I don't have any medical problem that should cause this genetic thing. It's part of the family heritage, I guess. So the next one is going to be, let's see here. You probably addressed in this fast. Do you feel that Fukushima can ever be repaired or contained? I have an opinion about nuclear power plants that's pretty straightforward. I have an absolutist attitude. If a piece of equipment stops working correctly, even if it's, you know, a computer, you shut it off. You find out what's wrong with it and you fix it. Because the act of using a nuclear power plant that's damaged is the same as starting one when you know it's defective. And, you know, a lot of nuclear power plants have been cleaned up and dug out and everything's taken care of. It's just an empty hulk. But people don't know about that because it's so anticlimactic. Because it takes a while. It takes a long time. Because you have to be really careful about not causing any more problems with it. But the rest of the question will come up next. Will it keep pumping radioactive water into the Pacific? Do you think the radiation has reached the West Coast? Now, this is a thing. As of last year, I don't remember what time, it was 300 miles off of the coast of the United States as a technically detectable radioactive material signature, which means you collect 3,000 gallons and you detect ratios of these a couple of dozen, you know, let's say 5 elements, and it matches the signature from a nuclear power plant. And it's coming, and the concentration increased slightly 1,000 miles more towards Japan. So that meant it came from there. That's it. And it's barely detectable and requires thousands of gallons of water to do it. It's not something you go out with a Geiger counter and you can detect. Also, every beach, if you're not aware of this, has radioactive material on it because it gets sifted by the water. So it's really hard not to detect radiation at a beach. Go find a beach that no one would ever assume has radioactive material on it and go test it. You will get reactions in many of them, most of them in fact. For the same reason you can get gold at a certain part of a curve in a river, stuff filters out that's heavy. Radioactive material generally, not always, but generally is heavy. And uranium is a natural occurring material, but it will concentrate in areas like that. This is something that has been gone through. Almost every video that has been done since Fukushima about the west coast of the United States has been taking advantage of the person doing it, knowing full well that this is the reaction that you get. And they just repost the videos anyway. The worst one is Beautiful Girl by Dana. If you actually watch his videos, he's, again, I'm going to quote Little Big Man, he is a reverse barometer of what's real. He lies all the time. And yes, it's a guy. But anyway, here we go. But no, the west coast isn't being boiled, and we still don't have detection on the coast as far as I know. We may have actually had some presence of it, but the amount is, I mean, the amount of material coming to it's barely detectable above what's already there from runoff from the mountain ranges. We have uranium in almost all mountain ranges because it's the ground being pushed up and broken. So stuff that's buried deeper gets put up to the top and starts washing away because of water. It's part of how this planet works. May even be the main engine that drives the heat engine that drives the core. Do I believe ETs and flying saucers flying around are actual little gray men, or is it government trying out new technology? This is a really straightforward answer. This is an opinion, but this is also based on some doth protest too much. The people who make the assertion that they're aliens visiting our planet go out of their way to do everything other than find any kind of proof. Even people who claim to have seen Bigfoot. I'm a Bigfoot faker from my hometown. We used to do that to get rubes to, drop money at the local grocery store. Didn't work. Even Bigfoot researchers at least produce some kind of proof. The majority of the stuff that you find associated with this idea are like crop circles and stuff that are explained insanely easily by just going to a local university or college or just a community center and learn how to make your own crop circles as a form of artwork. It actually is, most of the stuff is just simply stuff that happens or is being misinterpreted or is easily reproduced. It's not anything supernatural, therefore it doesn't require an alien spaceship. Now the real question here is, do I believe we're being visited? Because of the insanely obnoxious, pornographically large distances to traverse just between two stars. Now, there is no invisible star. That's a contradiction in terms. I mean, really it is. It's not a star anymore. It's literally the empty hulk of one. It's called a neutron star, or it's just a mass of material, and it's just a planet with nothing out there, just orbiting it. Nothing orbiting anything. It's just planets. And we can detect those. We can actually detect most of the stuff, at least find out if it's out there. Living things have to have certain conditions to survive. The only thing that could survive these vast distances would be something that evolved in space. By definition, that would be something so foreign from our experience, you probably wouldn't even recognize it. You might want to look up something called a water bear. A water bear is a bug, a little critter, that can tolerate almost all the requirements of being able to be an interstellar traveler, but it doesn't move and it's not very smart. Survival doesn't require brains, it just requires the ability not to die. And in space, anything on this planet that's genetically and physiologically adapted to this planet doesn't do that. Things that live in the sea would be able to adapt easier because they're used to being in low gravity or effectively low gravity. But the whole problem with this is lifespan. Unless you're a sea turtle or a tree, traveling through space takes too damn long. And there's too many... I mean, a pinhole will eventually kill you because it will drain the ship of air. Unless you can make your own air. The requirements for doing this stuff are ridiculous. And then we get to the next really useful question here. Do you think they, or the government, have solved the gravity problem? Do you believe in zero-point energy? Sorry for the long post. Zero-point energy isn't something you believe in. It's the minimum, the lowest state you can detect when you'd think there would be no energy signature. It has been found that there is an energy signature. It's also called black body radiation. At least it's referred to or alluded to. There's a certain minimum energy, even in empty space, that exists that we barely understand. It might be just the interaction of time-space. And the idea that you could pump energy out of it or whatever, or exploit it, is an interesting idea, but there is no practical application that anybody can use because it all nulls itself out and averages out over large distances. Over incredibly tiny distances, zero-point energy can probably propel something about like a quark, something smaller than even, you know, something that would make a proton or a neutron out of. Things like electrons might be affected by it if they were stationary somehow. And that's my really horribly done, not thumbnail sketch, but me smearing poop on the wall diagram of it. I mean, that's as elementary as I can make it because that's as best I can understand it. I can for a short time understand all of these things, but it's a really complicated subject. But zero-point energy isn't something we can exploit simply because we don't know how to. As for being able to use it in space, there's a kind of a go, no-go test for figuring this kind of thing out. It would not actually work. This is like exploiting the magnetic field of the Earth and pulling energy out of it. Okay, you could pull a tiny percentage out and have it refilled by the interaction of our planet with the solar wind, technically. But you'd end up having to do, in that case, pump a ton of energy in to get out that energy, and then a little extra. Maybe. And it doesn't work reliably. It's not a reliable source, sort of like wind power isn't reliable in some places. Zero-point energy is the same sort of thing. Only under extremely bizarre and absolutely impossible to produce conditions can you do anything with it. And it doesn't yield much. You're better off just, you know, absorbing energy that happens to be coming through from light. The light from a star way out in the distance is probably more energy than you can get from trying to exploit it. And trying to use it as something to exploit to produce propulsion, or like something in time-space to grab to go forward, is less efficient, even hypothetically, than just using propellant. And it's not an inexhaustible supply by that definition, so it would be worthless, except for something nearly on the atom level, like a couple of molecules across trying to propel itself. We could make a pico, not nano, but pico level piece of equipment move, maybe? But it doesn't really have any practical value for us. And again, it would only work in zero space, and empty space between solar systems. As for the gravity problem, it's not a gravity problem. Gravity is, on the face of it, as far as tested, it does not have polarity. There isn't an anti-gravity that we found. It is the same thing as having anti-radiation from radio signals. Radio signals propagate and spread. You can focus them, but there isn't one that comes from the outside and pumps in. The same way that gravity effectively radiates out, effectively at the speed of light. This is how the hypothesis works. We can't really exploit it, just because it's not the kind of thing that you can exploit. You can exploit wind and all sorts of other things, but it's just not amenable to it. The only way you could do it would be to literally be able to operate within multiple extra dimensions we don't even know if they exist, and somehow not create literally a tiny little Big Bang and blow yourself to pieces. I mean, if somebody wants to show that this has been done, that's great, but they have to actually provide mechanical proof. This is like having a perpetual motion machine or an engine that runs on water. It has to be a proof that is not refutable, because it has to be. I mean, I can claim that I saw Bigfoot. Nobody can refute it. I can't prove it, because if I try to prove it, then there's something to refute. It has to be falsifiable. No falsifiable proofs for any of this has been showing up. But if you want to know, I've done this before in a couple of videos, Groom Lake and all that kind of stuff. The U.S. government played around with what, this is my conclusion, this isn't backed up anything, but I suspect that they were messing with what we would call autonomous drones as long ago as they could, and making analog computer-based ones and failing, but including one of them that was used as an experiment to make a lander that would land on the moon. That's what they were experimenting with, and most of them failed. That's why you don't hear about them, because they're just failed experiments. That's like me showing you my little experiment I did in 4th grade. It's not something they care about, because it didn't work and they just learned from it and threw it in the garbage and started over with another experiment. That's my conclusion. Doesn't mean it's right. But that's from hearing about this for a long time and having access to people who would know whether or not this was even something that can happen. The most likely scenario, if you're curious, is some life form on the planet that we don't know about, and that's been disproven because we've explored too much of the Earth. The only thing left would be at the bottom of the sea, which coincidentally would be a lot like what you find in space. Alien creatures looking like they're at the bottom of the sea coming up. You know, that could be possible. That's actually slightly plausible. But then again, I like the whole Nazis moving onto the moon kind of thing, too. I like that movie. But anyway, those are my answers. I'm not trying to be a jerk about it. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with it.